Welcome back. So I've had a very interesting thought about how to start today's podcast because one of the things we're going to talk about today is politics. And the thought I had was often I've heard from people there are certain conversations one doesn't have around the dinner table when you're with friends. And two of the ones that show up are usually religion or politics. So I'm going to invite you to
That's right.
really embrace this opportunity to let's talk about the stuff that we don't normally want to talk about. Now, we're not going to go into religion because my view is I will only ever talk to anyone about something if they have as lived experience. I'm not interested in a conversation about judging or assessing something in a situation that we don't have any experience in. And so today I have the fortunate opportunity of being able to talk about politics that I basically know nothing about, to be frank with you, because I've never done it and I've never been in it. But with somebody who, in my humble opinion, is someone to be watching out for, not just even now in the unbelievable work she's doing, but in the future, you want to watch out for this woman. I kid you not. So firstly, I'm going to say thank you for joining me, and Dai, and then I'm going to make sure I get your your intro right and how I say your name. So thank you for joining me.
Thanks, Kylie. You said my name correctly, so that's Dai. I know it's spelled differently, but it is Dai.
Oh, thank goodness. And of course I do want to also make sure I get the pronunciation of your full name correct. And do you want to say that for me?
Yes, it's Dai Lee.
Excellent. Dai Lee. Okay, now, so today we are going to get into a few different things. We're going to talk about politics, yes, which most of us have always got an opinion about. And in the current climate, these are incredibly difficult times, and the spotlight is on every single person leading the country in every country. And to be honest with you, I don't think there's a worse place that I'd rather be. I would hate to be sitting in the seat where they are right now. I can't even imagine, honestly, how difficult it would be to do that job. Now, I'm not going to give an opinion about what I think or how I think they're doing the job because I've never sat in that seat. So all I know is that as a leader, I found it incredibly difficult at times, and I know I'm not the best. I don't have all the answers and I'm not perfect. So I'm not going to comment about that. But I do want to bring the whole world of your thoughts and feelings about all of that into the space. But what we're going to do is talk about a couple of things in that area. Number one, we are going to talk with Dai about her personal experience in the game of politics, because that's what she's doing. More importantly, we're going to talk with her about her passion for challenging the status quo when it comes to politics, and some of the remarkable work that she's doing to rise, I suppose, a new breed of politics when it comes to, diverse stories, embracing our differences. And I know it sounds cliche, and Di was saying exactly the same thing. Whilst her passion and the mission for her is kindness, there's a big difference between saying we want kindness, which of course might seem cliche, but there's a big difference between that and actually there being an existence of kindness in reality. And we all know that if you look at the media right now, you could absolutely say for sure that kindness is not a reality. Now, before I head over to Di to get started in her story and sharing about her experience, there's one thing that she said to me just before we jumped on live that I do want to presence, because I don't want this to get missed today. And it was that this view that we do live in a world of abundance. So the question is, if we do live in a world of abundance, how is it that we each individually and collectively can find the place where we experience abundance? Because I do believe, much like Di, that is the place where we will find kindness. So, all right, Di, here we go. Come on. I'm really looking forward to your personal insight and experience in the game of politics, especially in the current climate.
Oh, look, politics is a very interesting game. Hello to the listeners of the Uncharted Leader podcast. Thank you for having me, Kylie. It's a new game for me, and it is a game. As you said, it's a game. And it's understanding that to make a huge impact, there are times when you know, making a decision about an issue or policy, you got to think who are the majority that can actually benefit. So often you can't please everybody, as in any situation, not just in politics. We can never please everybody at the same time. But if we can actually make decisions to actually benefit a large group of people, that is something that is really making an impact.
Yeah. Can we start with, if you don't mind, one of the things that I would like to start with is to find out from you, when did you decide to get, like, how long have you been in politics? But more importantly, when did you make the decision to go into politics?
So I made a decision that it wasn't even a decision; it was just a leap. So that was in 2008. I had just I was being as a journalist. I was working at the Australian Broadcasting Corporation as a journalist, as a broadcaster. Actually, had a very good job. I was able to travel, interview, all of that stuff, and I was getting to my point in my life. I think it was in my mid-30s when I was thinking, what do I do? Is this where I'm going to be for the rest of my life? Can I make a bigger impact? Because I felt that telling stories was not having a huge impact. It was, but it wasn't having a huge impact. And I wanted to do something bigger. And I wanted actually to make a feature film. But by sheer coincidence, I was shopping one day in Cabramatta, where I grew up and was living, and I thought, and there were people talking in the markets about, the lack of the politicians who we elected weren't really representing us. They haven't done anything for the community. And Cabramatta, if people don't know where it is in the southwest of Sydney. It has a large population of migrants and refugees. Almost 40% of the population of that area are from non-English speaking background and a migrant and a refugee, like myself, a refugee. And I felt that, and they said, look, because I hear people, the market stall holders and the shop owners were saying, we've been asking for a car park for the last 2 decades and nothing has happened. And I said, really? For a parking spot? Like for a parking station? And I said, I can't believe that they haven't delivered that. And so my husband, he should be blamed for this. He goes to me, he said, I think maybe you should, you've been wanting to do something different. Why don't you consider going into politics? And I thought, but I've got no experience. I don't know what, other than me being a journalist interviewing politicians, and like the majority of people thinking that politicians don't really do what they say they'll do, like they don't honor what they say they do. They're not their word. And I thought, oh my God, going into that space, I'm going to be painted the same brush. And my husband said, but you're different. You've had lived experience of what's like coming from a housing commission, single parent household, being a refugee. You've had these life experiences that I think you can contribute and make a difference to politics and policy formation. And I thought, okay, sure. And so out of that, I just said, all right, I'll give politics a go. And I put my hat in the ring to nominate myself for that state seat, which was a safe Labor seat, the second safest Labor seat in the whole of the country. And I thought, well, who should I run for? And had no political connection. So I thought, I said, well, independent, my God, this is going to be hard because we've got no money. We have to fund it ourselves. So there was one other major party, which was the Liberals. And I thought, well, the Liberals, at least I have some, as somebody who wants to get into business, I wanted, and I believe in that whole business, individualism and opportunities, right? But I thought, but hang on, would the Liberal Party accept me because I'm Asian? And I thought, well, let me test that, because this is what we hear people complaining about. This is what people talk about. but is it true that the Liberal Party was anti-Asian? So I thought I'll test that theory. So I put my nominate, I rang them up, I nominated, and they said, oh my, who are you? Did all the interview process, and they said, oh yes, you know, they got me to meet with all the leaders. Again, you have to imagine me as being this Asian face woman. I don't know with your podcast if you'll show my face, but so I got invited to meet with the then leader of the opposition, which was Barry O'Farrell, the president of the party, the treasurer, no, the state director, and all of these group of men that I've, like, it was a completely new world for me. Like, I was just like, what? Okay, it's okay, I'll do this. I went in, had a meeting with them, and you know, Barry is an amazing leader. He was so, you know, like, you have this perception about politicians, and I'm sure many people do, about how they're so disconnected and they speak from the head, they're not from the heart. But Barry was different, and as he said, well, you know, we would love you to run for the state seat of Cabramatta. I said, okay. I had no idea what that meant. No idea. Had no idea.
Sure, I'll do that. Oh, what do you mean?
Yeah, exactly. And I thought, shit, what am I supposed to, oh, sorry, I said the words S. What am I supposed to do? He goes, it's all right, we'll assign you with somebody to help you with your campaign. Right. So, but first of all, I had to take leave from the ABC. So I took leave from the ABC, and I said, so when do I start? They said, this week, because I didn't know that, I didn't realize that there was a by-election coming up. And so that means I had 3 weeks to campaign. So I went out there, I had nothing. I had no material to talk about who I was because I was so new. And so being a journalist, I wrote my little story. I had a photo taken by this guy who was assigned to look after me, met me, and Cabramatta took a photo, said a few words, and we printed out this A4 and gloss, and then I started I took leave from the Friday, but Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, midweek, I then had this material prepared, and I started at the train station handing it out. And people started to take from my hand this pamphlet, and I said, "Oh, great! You know, never campaigned before, and I thought this was normal that people would take this pamphlet from your hands." But later on, I was told, "No, it's not, because people don't like to take from politicians." But they took and they read, you know. They took and they read, and so suddenly the media interviewed me, and of course I had a few friends in the press that they came and interviewed me for it, and suddenly I got all of these. The opposition leadership team came out to campaign with me. Now, for the first time, I met the then Shadow Transport Minister, who's now our Premier, Gladys. I met the then Shadow Treasurer, which was Mike Bett, who later became our Premier. So all of these people, I didn't know who they were, came and met and campaigned in Cabramatta. And I'm thinking, oh my God. And Cabramatta, a safe Labor seat, have never seen political campaigning before. Because in a safe seat, Labor or Liberal, MPs do not campaign. They don't need to campaign, because the best that they campaign is send you. You probably receive their magnetic cards or calendar, a letter celebrating your 21st anniversary or whatever. That's the best that you get from your politicians in a safe seat, but you will never see them out in the street. And so for me, I didn't know this, or I just campaigning or met people. And so that then got the then Premier, I think it was Nathan Rees, coming out to Cabramatta. That's never been heard, never happened before. Like suddenly the government, the leader of the government of the day, the leader of the opposition of the day, coming out to this safe seat to campaign. Like, it was like, so that was my baptism into politics. That was the easy part. The hard part was later on, once after the whole campaign. So I then brought that seat of 30% down. So for those who are in politics and listening, safe seat you can never shift. Very hard. Back in those days anyway. It went from 30% down to 7%. So that was one of the biggest by-election swings in the history of by-election since Federation. It was reported then. And then soon after, others, once Cabramatta swung that badly in a by-election, that signaled to a lot of those political pundits that, oh my God, that means the opposition will win the next general election, which in 2011, the Liberal Party won by a landslide, in terms of government. Labor was reduced after the 16 years in power and not doing things for seats like Cabramatta, reduced to about 19 members of parliament. So it was a really bad thing for the Labor Party. So then I did not win the seat, which was apparently natural. What I achieved was unnatural. However, as a result of that, I later then got the opportunity to work with the then leader of the opposition, Barry. So he offered me a position to work with him in Parliament. And so I resigned from the ABC, left a very safe job into a part-time job in order to prepare to campaign for the next general election, which was 2011. But from then, that process has been a real learning, because you realise that everybody that you meet, that you've met on that political journey, had not just one pair of glasses that they wore, they had multiple lenses that they wore when they spoke with you. So it was never talking. So whenever they speak with me, they'll say to me, "What's your agenda?" I said, "Oh,
what's your what?
My agenda."
Oh, right.
Why do you do that? Why do you do
Right.
that? What's your agenda? Questioning. I said, well, my agenda is actually to represent this community that has been neglected. And they don't believe that. They see, in politics, the whole, I think, genuine authenticity of you being a normal person to do something to make a difference that's not what it's about. It's about, okay, have you got the numbers? I got you here and you've got me here. So I can, I'll tap you on your shoulders. Are you ready? Have you been doing the things that you've been doing in the party to get you to the position of being pre-selected for a position? So it's not about genuinely looking at the person's talent. Right. So so I've been in there for 10 years now. So when people talk to me about, oh, it's about meritocracy, I said, BS. What meritocracy? Right? The meritocracy that they judge most people on is the length of service, is how long have you been out there pounding the pavement, or what kind of deals you've made in order for you to actually be the chosen one, and who are you aligned with? So it's who are you aligned with? So I was quite critical of that when I first joined, because I'm thinking, if I'm not aligned, if I don't know you, how can I align with you? I've got to align with your values first. So what are your values? What do you believe in? What do you stand for? Right? And what are you trying to do for humanity? Then I can then say, okay, look, we have shared values, absolutely. But I can't be aligned with because you're left or right or center right. Doesn't make sense to me, right?
Yes.
I can be left, I can be right, I can be center right. Doesn't mean that I, it's to me. But I learned a hard lesson, because it's not about that. It's about loyalty to a particular group of people if they have been supportive of you, if you are loyal to them. But then I've also discovered that there's no such thing as loyalty. There's a lot of backstabbing. There's a lot of deals being made, a lot of deals being done. And it's still a learning process for me, because they're still.
Can I just ask you a question about that?
There and
yeah, Dai, can I just ask you a question about that in particular? The backstabbing. I'm reminded of a conversation I had recently with somebody about motivation. And that there's what I know of the brain science is that our brain, as a human being, we take action because there's a motivator, whether it's motivated towards pleasure or away from pain. We know that there is actually a function of motivation that occurs.
Yep.
And I say that because for some reason I can see a parallel between that theory and backstabbing. That backstabbing is something that happens that is an outcome of something for a reason. So we backstab because we want something, or we're trying to compensate for something, or like there's a reason. I suppose it doesn't matter whether it's whatever that is, but there's some reason we do it. Like if there is an action, if there is a motivator behind every action we take or every thought we have as a human being, then in that kind of principle, what is the backstabbing in politics? What's the reason for it? Would you say?
Look, I agree with you in terms of the motivator. So there's people are motivated either as a personal motivation, they personally for themselves, or motivated because motivated because of a cause. So if you're passionate about the environment, or you're passionate about business, that motivates you to do something in order to improve the situation, or add, mainly contribute to the situation to better it, right? I think that's my thinking.
Yes.
So perhaps backstabbing, politicians would disagree that there's backstabbing. They say, we just do deals, right? And somebody miss out on it and all that stuff.
Right.
But I think what's unique about politics is, and I am in the entrepreneurial space, so I do understand, when you sit down and you collaborate and you have a partnership, and then sometimes the partnership works out, sometimes, you cut your losses and you move on. I got, in my business, I experienced this last year with my own business, whereby I brought somebody on, trusting them fully and letting them have, because I trusted them, because they said this is what they believe in, and I just trust people, full stop. And it's something that you're not supposed to have in politics. And you can't trust, right? And I think, what does not mean I can't live life like that? I'm trusting. Jesus Christ. But people go into politics with that already, that they don't trust, right? So, but for me, I trust. So I brought this woman on, trusting, giving her open access to, because she's going to be our treasurer and accountant. And at the end, I found out beginning of this year that she paid herself without us knowing. and so I thought, I was so heartbroken, because I'm thinking, I trusted her, and I felt that and there were months when she was not in communication with me, and I thought, maybe she's busy. And now I look back at I thought, when she was losing that communication with me, she's probably doing all this stuff without me knowing, because I was out there still trying to, develop the business, bringing clients, completely oblivious, to what was happening. So that happens in business. So people then betray the trust that you place on them. The same in politics. So the experience in politics have taught me that it's me, really, at the end of the day. If I choose to trust people and I get burned or backstabbed, then that's my choice, or my responsibility. So I have learned that, yes, you can trust, but you always then now have to think, who can you trust? And when you sit down and have a conversation about a deal, there's always deals. Okay, if I support you for this position, are you going to support me for this position? All right. So that's the kind. It's kind of collaboration, but it's not. It's kind of, it's like, you give me this, I'll give you that. So that more that happens in politics than people are aware of. One of your ministers might be a minister for, I don't know, look, I better not name names or whatever, but they might say, well, I want this policy through, and it's not about the actual policy for the people, but then that minister is different to another minister from another faction. So there's this other level of dealing that's happening as well. So it's not just about the issue, not about the policy, but the internal politics of what factions you're aligned with, if for them to support that policy. So it's very complex. I'm still I'm still
You know, I mean,
trying.
I mean, even though we say that's politics, right? But as you were saying that, I thought, oh, it's actually really, that's really no different to what I recall of how it was operating within a business. Anyway, you know, there are always partnerships. You were forming deals. You were forming. You know, I like you, you like me. I'm looking at this. What's the negotiation? I mean, really, you know, I think if you go inside the culture of an organisation, that goes on everywhere. I mean, I suppose that's why they talk about, you know, certain politics in a job. I mean, you know, so
Yeah, and this
yeah.
and hence exactly. So this absolutely, that's what I was going to refer to. There's always politics in everything, and we don't even
Mm,
actually put the name to it because we think, oh, that we don't like that person, their personality. But in
mm,
politics, it's more emphasized.
mm,
Um, and so what I have learned in the last 10 years is that alignment or the faction is about networking,
mm,
right? It's about who's your network, and how and what's their net worth, right? So that network in politics is your net worth.
mm,
Um, but I think in the business world, there's a bit more integrity in the sense that if you're in that network, there is more collaboration, there is more support than normal, than say in politics. In that network that you're aligned with, uh, often it doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be in that network forever, because
mm,
there's bound to be somebody in there that's going to be leaking on you. And therefore, if you're about to be promoted to a position or to be pre-selected, in your network, you'll be bound to be pulled down, right? So there's no guarantee that being in that network will yield you a net worth in the future. But in the business, there is more of that. And because I've experienced both, I know that in the business and entrepreneurial space, there's more of that collaborative spirit than in politics. So while there are politics, and but one, you're more likely to gain and benefits and working together, whereas in politics, in the actual political arena, it's less. So it's very hard. And I wonder is because it's predominantly men, predominantly male egos,
mm.
and very much not many women at all. So,
No.
and a
But
few
now that
women.
you've, Di, now that you've brought that up in the differences, one of the things I do want to just spend a bit of time on, because I'm conscious that we don't have all day, because I'm just noticing I could sit here all day and we could talk about this, but I do want to come back to a couple of things that are quite unique about yourself, and the thing that you are passionate about, and that is about the showcasing diverse stories, and ensuring that we're able to embrace, you know, different cultures in order to, you know, for in service of humanity, right? So given that you brought up the male female thing, I want to jump over into that conversation for you and your passion in that area, because you do quite a bit in the area of showcasing diverse stories. So what is it that what are some of the things that you're doing in that space?
So because of the experience I've witnessed and I've seen, the lack of the diversity of voices, and lived experiences, both in the media and both in the political arena, there is only certain groups of people who are actually out there that are the voice or the leadership voice, that are shaping policies, that are shaping stories. And I'm thinking, well, hang on, how is Australia going to prosper and grow if we don't actually hear more from the diverse perspectives of people from diverse backgrounds, culture, um, uh, uh, ability, physical wise, people who've got disability, or people from lower socioeconomic backgrounds, like diverse people. So I and over the years, people have talked about, oh, we have lack of women in on boards. I would say, well, lack of not just women, but lack of diversity on board, full stop.
Mm,
We just have a group of men sitting up in a boardroom, men in there, who are part of a network of businesses that have come from a very privileged background, that will make a decision about a company when that company clients or customers are actually quite diverse. So how do you know what to sell or how to improve your product or services if you don't have a diverse perspective, on your team. I'll give you an example. I was working for a government agency briefly, and so I was part of a managerial team, and we went into a meeting with all different managers to talk about an economic program, a financial program, literacy program. And I was the only person in that team that was not white. And so they were talking about, about a program. I said, well, so one of the things I said was that, are you also looking, how do you deliver this program to people from culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds? Because if you do, you need to think of languages. You need to think of how do you deliver that, and how do you communicate that to those communities. They all said, oh, okay, look, thank you. But see, if I wasn't there, that thought would not have been there in the first place. That's one example. Another example is obviously with the whole COVID thing. The government put out a lot of messages around COVID and all that stuff, and they translate. They said, well, we've done the culturally and linguistic diverse product of the post, and we've shared that as well.
Excuse me.
But bless you. But I said to them, well, but the English version, first of all, when you wrote it, did you check it with somebody who's English, who's fluent in English, but who's come from a cult background? Because in reading your English, how do you then translate that English into a more simpler language? Because if you write it for an Anglo person, you will not think twice. You say, oh, well, they can understand it. So you need to. So when I read this piece about for COVID, I said, even I, who speak English fluently, I got confused because I don't understand what you're trying to say here in English. So how am I going to get that translated into another language if I don't even understand it in English? So small things like that means that if you don't have a diversity of perspectives and experiences to give to you, then how are you going to make a product, or how do you create a comms plan to communicate with your constituents, your customers, your clients who are from diverse backgrounds, who have different lived experiences, who identify, have a sexual, a same-sex identity. So that all of those things, I know is complex. I know is very complicated to consider when you make decision, but unfortunately, being leaders, that's what you have to do. You have to navigate through those complexities.
So one of the things that you brought up earlier, you talked a little bit about one of the things that you found, whether it was just yourself or within the game of politics, is probably the most challenging thing. I am curious for you. It's been an interesting journey for you, and whether it's in the game of politics or your passion for diversity, and is there a moment for you, based on everything that you're passionate about, that you could share with us that is one of the moments that for you is a standout accomplishment, like one of those proud moments you've had?
Oh, the parking station.
Oh, did you get it? Did it go through?
Yes.
Well done.
So, so I was known as the car parking queen of Cabramatta, but I said to myself, I said, I don't want just to be known as the car parking queen, but so that was the first thing that I achieved.
Yeah.
Community.
I know it's kind of, that's a bit cheeky in a way to say I don't want to be known as that, but it's not that really, is it? I mean, it's the fact that for how many years people were waiting for something that doesn't happen, and you're whether you call it the parking queen or the woman who makes stuff happen. I think the certainly what I'm left with is not that it was about parking itself, but certainly that you were someone who actually solved that problem for them after all of that time,
That's right. That's right. So they know that now, as since I've been elected onto council. So even though I campaigned in the state seat and I did not win that, but that's still my passion and that's still my aspiration. So I got elected onto council, and through being on council, I've been able to influence the policies. I've been able to influence some of the services and infrastructures that have been built since my election. So, recently I was so passionate. I'm very passionate about small business, as I said, and entrepreneurship, and I've been asking for us to set up a committee to look at, Fairfield small business entrepreneurial hub. And so that on Tuesday night that was created, and I'm going to chair that. So I'm really excited that although it's taken a while to get to the small wins, I know that's happening. So in politics, you celebrate the small wins. So these are the small wins for me, because I know that while they're small, if you look at the bigger picture, they're actually quite big for the community. And the car parking has been addressed. We've upgraded some of the major infrastructures in our city that has not been touched. We have ensured that we have, with the independent councillors that got elected with me, we've worked together to ensure that we've lowered, for instance, rates for our residents, because, despite us we've got one of the lowest rates in the whole of New South Wales, we want to ensure that reflects in the rates that we get from people gets back paid, given back to them, and through the infrastructure that we built. So there are a few of those things that I've achieved, which I'm really, and I think the most recent one is I'm on council, so mainly the things that people approach me for is roads, rates and rubbish. That's really, but people are now approaching, because I'm so visible and I'm so vocal, that people approach me for migration issues even. Not that I can help them, but I can facilitate. So through my writing a letter of support, for instance, I've been able to contribute to bringing one of a family home, and I think they just came back home this week from the United States. And being home quarantine and all of that stuff. So I'm really, so those things, I thought, oh God, I've been able to achieve something. You know what? If something was to happen to me, and this is as far as I get in life, I can really humbly say that, you know what? I have built the car parks, not physically, but I have achieved that. I have ensured that some of our facilities have been built and upgraded. I have helped individuals to fix their, problems, their personal problems, not personal, but problems that they have with the government. So those are the things I have achieved, and I'm really proud of that. So.
That's fantastic. There's two more things I would like to ask you. The last one is, because what I was present to when you were sharing that was, your leadership, how you've expressed leadership when it comes to the things that you've produced and, the action that you've taken. So I'll come back to that to end on your view in terms of how you would describe a leader as someone, and then I'll get you to complete on that one. But before we jump to that, the other thing that was present for me as you were sharing that was, when looking at accomplishments, there's often in the background for us, there's what it takes to have accomplished those things, and to bring in an acknowledgement of whatever that was, or whoever that was part of that journey for you. Is there an acknowledgement that you'd like to make, whether it's about yourself or others, or anything tangible? Is there anything you or anyone with whom you'd like to acknowledge for that accomplishment?
Look, I think that the people who have been with me to help me campaign, those who've not been involved in politics, who've been helping me handing out how to vote at every election, those are the members of the community and those who voted for me, really, because if they did not vote for me to get elected, then I would not be in a position to do the things that I can do for the community. So the voters, first of all, and then my team of volunteers. A lot of them come and go because obviously whenever you get involved in a campaign, it's just exhausting. And after that, they think, oh my God, and they see the dirtiness of it and they don't want to get involved, but they still help me every now and then. So those team are very, I'm grateful for those volunteers, and they're mainly, a lot of them are young people. They are looking for role models. These are children of parents who, like, my mum came here as a refugee, so a lot of those kids have been born here as of parents of refugee background. So those ones, and some of my colleagues, and like I did mention before, that you can't trust too many in politics, but there are some, and you can actually count them on your hand, those that you can trust fully and that you can work with fully, and that they will stick with you through thick and thin, and it's beyond politics. So there is very few. And the one thing I always remember is that remember the people on your way up, because they'll be there on the way down. So those are the people that I want to acknowledge, because I think that we tend to, I think, business or politics or whatever it is we do in life, is that we go on this journey to build ourselves, our business, our career. But I think as a leader, and I'd like to see myself continue to do that, is to always acknowledge those who've been with you from the beginning. They might have step off the carriage every now and then, but they do step back in. But always remember those people there, because it's very important to have yourself grounded as well at times. And these are the people that, some of them are friends that I've had for decades. Some friends actually left me because I got into politics. So then do you think, well, are they friends? And those are the friends who made a decision because I joined the Liberal Party. But I'm an independent, by the way, now, because the Liberal Party expelled me. So it's been great. It's been a blessing. I also, have my family to thank for as well, to acknowledge my husband has been amazing. Even though we've had fights about, I sometimes say, he goes, why are you so involved? I said, well, you actually planted that seed in my head now, so unfortunately I'm going to be here for a while. And there are moments when you go through that of, yes, do you do this to your family? Because there are personal sacrifices that you have to make. You can't be, the one thing that I made it in the 10 years that I've been involved, I was committed to this, was to be at my son's, at everything that my son was, that's important to him. Whereas a lot of the times, sometimes I can't take him to soccer, sometimes I can't, but at every parents and teachers night, I ensured I was there. Every important milestones in his schooling, I make sure that I was there. But a lot of the times is very difficult, yeah.
Yeah, it absolutely is. So that does bring me to a question that I want to ask your view from where you sit, and is to complete a statement for me. A leader is someone who?
Who's courageously humble. So for me, courage, humility, and I think compassion is very important. Courage, humility, and compassion. Through courage, you are actually also determined, you focus. So that, for me, courage encapsulates all of that. Humble, humility is about being kind, reflect, being mindful, and being aware. And I think compassionate means you also have, you got to be compassionate, but you also, I think it's the heart and the mind working together.
Lovely. Well, thank you for bringing the courageous humility and compassionate approach to leader and being a leader, and for everything that you've done. I know one of the things that was present for me before we even got on was, I know there's an entire world of background and stories. Just to highlight, because we're not going to be able to get onto it today, but certainly we should do sometime down in the track, but you know, certainly a career in ABC and journalism in and of itself, no doubt there's amazing stories in that for you. And
Yeah.
also I want to acknowledge that we also didn't go here, but that there is a beautiful, well, I'm going to say beautiful because, you know, I think our words can create a world, but, you know, your story in terms of your arrival in Australia with your family and what your family went for. And I just want to acknowledge it because I do know that often when we have a passion for something, it often comes back from our values and the things that we're, you know, really that we've seen and that we don't, and once you've seen it, you can't unsee and you want to really do something about it. So, you know, unfortunately, whilst we didn't get to talk about that, I just wanted to put it into the conversation so that we, you know, because I do think at some point down the track, I would love to be able to share those stories. You know, maybe we do one on each of those separately, but thank you for joining me today
Yeah.
and for sharing the insider story from your experience of being in politics. And congratulations, like really congratulations for taking and having the courage, and not only having the courage to step up, but to stick with it, because I don't imagine that it's even easy just to stick with it.
Yeah, absolutely. It is not very easy. It's challenging. It's constantly challenging. Absolutely.
Mm. And is there any way people, or is there a way people can support you and the work you're doing?
They can check out my website and dailee.com.au. They'll see my work there. And I think, you know, whenever I start campaigning, I do call for volunteers because obviously being an independent, you don't have a party machinery, the soldiers of Young Libs or Young Labor to come and help you. So you do rely on volunteers. So obviously the election is not on till next year, but you know, they follow me on Facebook, follow me on Instagram, follow me on Twitter, on LinkedIn with me, and that way they can be kept up to date with what the things that I do, and then they can then jump on the carriage whenever the train stop. You know,
Fantastic.
last the train journey, jump on
Yeah,
the carriage
beautiful.
whenever the
All
train
right.
stops.
Well, we'll put all the details into the show notes as well. So you can go, you know, follow Dai on any social media platform in Facebook, Twitter, etc. And or check out her website. And like I said, we'll put all the links in the show notes. So thanks for joining me, Dai.